All right, so we got too fast. Oh, here we go.
Right, I'm just gonna change the
There you go.
20, 22.
All right.
Let's see, Julie, Jim, and Joe. Okay.
All right, 5:02, start the meeting, start off with pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We do have a quorum. Adjustments to agenda, I'm going to speak over here, so, jump right down here to new business. I've got two permits in front of me. One is for the Range Rec Department parking lot trunk or treat for 11 days from this evening. Everybody else has signed off on it. There's no issues that anybody knows of.
It's actually on.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Monday.
Entertain any motions to accept the permit for the Park and Rec Department?
Motion to accept the trunk or treat.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Can I play it? The other one that's in there.
This one?
No, pen.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Oh,
I
wait,
picked
dang it.
the one that's like.
All fairness, I hand this to you. Now I have another one for the giving tree, the lighting of the giving tree, November 26th, 3:30 to 5:30. Expected attendance of 50 people.
Okay, so what is it? Earlier this year,
Yeah.
giving tree lighting.
Yes, I'm sorry, the lighting, Saturday after Thanksgiving. November 26th. 3:30 to 5:30.
Not really a lot that goes on.
No,
Really,
fire
and
station.
she's been doing it for, oh my God.
What is yours?
I'm not about to say no.
Yeah,
I make a motion to approve it as written.
motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All right. All right, continue business from our last meeting. We were talking about having some overlay maps just to see as far as the beach area down at the park, I think. I'm assuming that's what this.
These are drawings that show the impervious area from the last big park project, so it's the tail end of that. It does cover that portion of the park. It does not cover anything over by the retention pond on the other side.
Yep.
Just new bathhouse and the new items. So what's in dark black is, look at it.
Because the discussion on our last meeting was we could increase the beach by coming back or widening.
The beach is right here. Yeah. So this was pavement, it's no longer pavement. So the hatch mark, the pervious area is not impervious anymore. It's back to green space. I think black is new.
Yeah, because this is the, that wheelchair accessible area.
And the other color was existing. So there's a, calculations are up here. So it is total new impervious area proposed 5,000 square feet. Total area of disturbance of 50,000. Existing to remain. 12,000 men within the total impervious area removed.
I don't know that from the last thing, but I remember we were also kind of talking about the, like, what did we have? So did Tracy say that they were working on the things people were gonna work on a potential layout for playground equipment, or was that now just remote?
It'll be other folks, with, they both name Eric. So
Yeah,
Eric, A-R-E-K,
Okay,
was
yeah.
this guy, E-R-I-C.
Okay,
So he is working on that,
Okay.
and that would be generally in this area.
because I think what we were trying to just figure out is knowing what we had for space, obviously, is going to help give me like
Right.
what we would like to see there. I mean, depending on what he proposes as well. But also having more space each if it was a possibility. I think that's what we were discussing.
How much, when you say more, how much more are you, this doesn't show the dock, I think it's. Yes, someplace. So this is kind of the beach area.
Mhm.
Are you thinking kind of fill that back in, or do you want to kind of reach further this
Yeah,
way?
We said there wasn't much room to come back closer to the bathhouse, but we weren't sure what size the playground was gonna be, so we could suit the beach this way.
Okay. Okay. All right, I think I understand what you're looking for, so we could, I'll figure out a way to get that drawn, so we
Yeah.
can see it. Like a
Okay.
proposal
So this is actually like the beach right here, is that what you're saying,
in here.
roughly? Okay.
Yeah, in here.
Alright.
So it's
Oh, yeah,
25
this
foot
is the
buffer.
backstop.
Right. So this is
Okay.
25 feet back. Go on.
Okay.
The beach is there.
Okay.
Depending on what kind of area it is. Okay.
As far as the dock, have they been any like decisions on that
Yes.
part? They have, okay,
Yeah.
so I was thinking that might impact that.
Yeah.
I have an update on that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
Cool
perfect.
about that too.
Okay, well, we can know what you're looking for there.
I guess it comes that close. It's okay. Creature habit. It's like, oh, you were over last night.
No, it's on both sides.
Right.
I promise. Yeah, I would not. Obviously, I'm.
So as far as the dock goes, we released an RFP for the dock for a couple of options. One was remove and dispose totally. One was remove and dispose of the parts of it that are no longer safe, no longer effective to use. We had some interest actually when it was out on the street. We had some people call and ask questions. That quite often happens with RFPs. And they once they get their questions answered, they're like, "Yeah." So we did have one bid, one responsive local company with the bid, and they had the option to bid it one way or both ways. They would give us pricing for both ways. The idea with taking it out completely was that we would put in something floating. So the elected folks didn't vote on who wanted to do what, but they, around the table, all of them said, we want to put the permanent one back. So they ended up approving that bid. I answered whatever questions they had. So there's an accepted bid to replace that as built. So it'll look just like it does now. The contractor is Ball Mountain Diving. I know who they are, but I don't know if they all call it Ball Mountain Campus.
Yeah.
It's actually, yeah. So what I'm working on now is the permit by rule. I filled that out for maybe send it in. I don't know if it requires an Army Corps of Engineer permit. I made that call today. Left the voice down there. Not easy to get hold of, but they'll call me back. So I'm making sure the permitting is there, but the selectmen have gone ahead and awarded the bid pending the permitting. As soon as we can get this lined up, they want to do the work on the icy gym, so they've got a platform to work on. So they're thinking January. They the contractors, they're thinking that they can get started in January.
I would never think of that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So total cost was just over $100,000. We have that in the park reserve, That stemmed an interesting conversation that I'll get into later. But that's the update on the dock, which I think is good news.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Well, and the fact that they can do it in January is also nice because then it can.
Yeah,
In the time
I'm hoping that the permitting folks will allow that. I don't know why they wouldn't, because we're not getting into the soil or anything, so hopefully they'll be okay. That's the update on that. When I brought this, I don't know if it was this item or something related to it, but I can segue into it now. I was talking with the board about a park item. It may have been, it was either this one or the Aquasic tennis courts. And the question came up was, we're talking about funding, and they said, does the park commission give input on Aquasic? And I said, I've asked them, like tongue in cheek over the years, about other things, but I think officially the answer is no. You're responsible for the town park. But the question came up in that conversation, would this group be interested in kind of overseeing at a very high level, at a committee level, all of the parks? Think about it. You don't have to answer that right now. It just kind of came up in that meeting, and I said, well, we'll talk with them about it.
There was boards years past that thought that was their goal, to oversee all the parks.
Yeah.
And,
So that would entail Aquasic, Haley Pond, and Rangeley, right? Those three.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense to me, but.
and we're here just as a de facto from the will.
Yeah,
What the park
that's the
commission is.
biggest
So,
thing.
I mean,
And I think I explained that to, when it came up, I kind of explained that, but the funding for it, so it's the same, I think you remember now, the question came from, the board about the funding, so there's $140,000 in the reserve. What are we gonna use for the Aquasic? So, Aquasic Park, they've approved an $11,000 study to, figure out what we're gonna do with that. The courts need to be upgraded, we all know that, they're not in great shape. So they've approved that, that's kind of where the discussion came from. That money has come from general reserve, not the general fund, but the general reserve. But they were kind of thinking, where should this come from when we're talking about funding it? That's how the conversation started.
What about the funding for this playground?
Good question. So that's something, there's a lot going on. That's a very good question. So the balance, I didn't bring it with me, but it's gone from roughly 140 in the park reserve to now 40-ish, if you take out this upcoming expense. The playground's gonna be probably 100. So we're gonna come up with 50 or 60 habits. And whether you phase that, come up with 20, 30 this year and start with 50, or if you want to do the whole thing at once. That's something, we'd like your input on. How do you, and I know we don't have it, parts and pieces together.
Yeah, so I think our biggest thing, and obviously, like, we had said we would be comfortable going to select board meeting too, just to have this conversation, is that, I know 5 years ago, the expectation or the, that money was raised for the park and playground. Because when Tim Pellerin was there, I keep saying, like, that's part of the reason I got on the board was because of like helping with the playground and all of that stuff. And granted, this is a huge project and things happen, but we're still without the updates to the playground.
Mhm.
And so we're just kind of like, okay, what is next and how are we gonna get those funds? Because I feel that it's time we have something there, and I don't wanna wait like another. I think the appeal of it is, the dock is going to be nice, because that has to be fixed. I mean, it has to be, we saw what it was like without it not being functional this
Right.
summer, and that was a problem, but also there's nothing to utilize in that park, outside of that.
we just wanted, after our last meeting, we wanted to make sure that the word was out to the public that we had that money allocated, but it ended up going towards the bathhouse,
That's exactly what.
which is fine.
Yeah.
And again, you needed it, so I understand that, but we just don't want people on the street being like, oh, the park had all that money, what do they need this for? You know what I mean? We want,
Just transparent.
yeah, exactly.
And I think you're right, that's kind of the building block of this conversation, is, it wasn't lost or missed, right, it was spent on the bathhouse, I was here.
I remember that. Yeah.
Everybody
And I
was like,
do
"Whoa."
remember that too,
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
I think even if it comes down to that, we only have 40,000 or 50,000, like, to get something for next summer. Yeah, even if it's phase one, but to show that there's something there.
Yeah.
Getting good.
Get the wheels spinning and get people talking.
Yeah.
Oh, this is phase one, right, yeah.
Yeah, well, think about Eric, ERIC, drawings. We haven't gotten yet, but he's in the throes of wrapping up his busy summer season. When those come in, we should have some idea, financially what this is gonna, I'm guessing it's 100,000 based on the conversation.
Right.
there. So,
ERIC, you said?
yeah, Eric Welzell, WELZEL. Let's think about a proposal for budget. This is a conversation I had with the other Jim on the committee at a meeting the other day about Lakeville Library. I said, get a proposal together. What do you think you need for funds going to next year? Let me have it. Doesn't mean I'm gonna be able to get that through. I haven't had a great, I haven't had 100% success with that, and some people will tell you. But just get that conversation going with the elected folks. And it's a tough process. They have to shake stuff down.
Yeah.
They have to do it.
So I'm new to all this, but my understanding is like, if, say there's 40,000, that's already there that we could, if he comes back with us and says it's 100,000 and he gives us an idea of what we could do for 40, we could go ahead and do that now. And then next budget, which would actually be 2024, we would say, okay, we want to finish that phase. But we could have something for this summer.
Yes, that reserve money requires an affirmative vote of the selectmen to
Okay,
expend for its intended purpose. So all it would take is a vote from them
okay,
in the affirmative, and
Okay.
yes, that money will be available.
okay.
So then it is, so the next budget season, which is when?
So we start working on it in January,
Okay.
but the budget, it gets voted on in June, it's
It is.
July 1 to June 3rd.
Okay, so then if we're going, so it wouldn't be allocated until,
Right, but we
after the
still have a
summer
chunk.
technically, right?
Midsummer.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Midsummer, okay, okay, all right.
Yeah.
But if we have something to say, okay, like this is starting and then.
Yeah, we
put
do
that
that,
in.
we have the,
Right.
is it our job to put together that suggestion for that budget?
Yes and no, we, the administration, will take care of the nuts and bolts.
Right,
But generally speaking, we can make a recommendation to say, that we want to request $30,000 this year to put in
okay.
a reserve account for the playground,
Mhm.
something like that.
Based on like what he shows us, like he
Okay.
thinks this is the most, would be a good.
Always,
Start with phase one.
always much easier for me to go in and say, hey, one of your committees has voted
Yeah.
this,
Okay.
and I recommend it. But I got more people behind it. It's
Yeah.
easier for me,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, the other thing, Joe, and I think we mentioned this, but we weren't really sure, and I think Patty was gonna look into it, or Tracy, but the area on the other side of the park.
Mhm.
Um,
She mentioned something about that.
like, is that technically, I know it's wet over there, but like at any point, and probably obviously not right away, like, is there a way for that to become usable recreation space, I guess?
I think that depends on what you envision that use to be. If you kind of look at it, there's a 100-foot setback where you're not gonna build it, because there's nothing there built now, you can't build over that 100-foot envelope. So I don't know if you're thinking about building, or if you're thinking about putting up something that's temporary,
I think it was
that comes
just
out. and stays
really
for-
like equipment or,
You could use it for something,
Yeah.
overall game or
yeah,
just,
Making it
so it's more useful, I guess, you know.
It's something that would go in and then come out.
Yeah.
it could go in and come out.
Even if it was like a temporary little stage for music. You know, one of those tent things that goes over, like,
Yeah. Temporary things, but just, it is a space that is underutilized. I mean, it gets used for festivals or things that are down there, and so it is good that it's open area too, but just looking at like the park and things that we can offer, it was just something we were throwing around, I guess.
I think within that 100 feet, it'd be very limited for permanent structures.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
I think you can do anything
Yeah,
for
yeah,
permanent structures, but. And 100 feet is probably closer than you think there.
Yeah.
If you come in from those shrubs, it's probably somewhat close to the road.
Road.
Right.
Okay.
But, I mean, there may be little pockets in there that. you
What
know,
about
you
dog
can do
park?
something with. I've heard that idea, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Well, if it's wet,
Right.
but like, is that something, like, does that 100-foot, that back
Don't
thing.
build a structure.
So you're not really,
Right.
unless you decided to enclose it, but. Just curious. It was just kind of like, yeah, I mean, we have people here and they're not going anywhere. So, and not that we want to take up our green space either, but like, it's just, I think just things that we were just thinking about, so.
No, I don't think, I think structures is a no, but I think other things, you know, you could do something with that, dog park might work. I don't think we need temporary fence for that. or
Yeah, well, and even if it's not enclosed, but if you just have things there.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. Great. Oh. Or any other update, like continuing business, like
Trying to
needed
think what we
updates
talked
on?
about, yeah.
I think those were the biggest thing. Oh, the monument or the shrubs, are those, or, yeah, something.
There hasn't been any movement on that,
Okay.
to be honest with you. That doesn't mean I don't think it should be.
Yeah,
What do
it's
you,
okay, we're just curious.
what are your thoughts? Do you think they should be removed and start again, or remove and put a fence? or-
I think shrubs are nice personally. I think you're gonna take them out, I think they should be replaced. with
I do
something. It
I
just gives you kind of that little private area.
Yeah.
that you
And
need
it's
to-
their low maintenance.
Yeah.
really. I mean.
Yeah, those have been there a long time, so when they're younger, they would be much more, much less. It's,
I'm trying to think, like, what else we had talked about. I think obviously the dog and the playground are big concerns, so.
So thinking of budget, let me make a note to get a price on truck. What it would take to remove, dispose, put new ones in, try to get that put in next year's budget.
Mhm.
That would probably go in the operating budget, depending on how much the quote is. If it's more than $5,000, I might be able to get it in capital. Which it may be more than $5,000 in this day and age, I don't know,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So Tracy was saying that the veterans group was against it, was that correct?
So years ago, it was one of the first meetings I went to, Everett was still with us, and we had a meeting, it was a board meeting, so we set up there, we were over there, and a whole bunch of old fellas came in, sat down, what's going on here? They didn't want, I think it ended up happening, but they didn't want any of those shrubs to be moved. We had to take a couple of them out to, you know, facilitate the sign or something. They were really wanted the shrubs to be there. I think so that folks weren't walking across the green.
Okay.
I don't think it was that they, yeah, I'm thinking back. I think there was we were proposing taking a couple out, and they were a hard no on that, but one of them ended up dying on the outside. We took it out and it looked awful, but.
I think just revamping it, and I would hope that that committee would see that, and I do think that keeping them, I mean, either keeping those ones or replacing them also curbs your vandalism, because it's not, it's not as like just out there and
Mhm.
exposed, like it.
Mhm.
I don't know that there's ever really been an issue, and I wonder if that's part of it. And it does keep people from just like walking across it, you know, I mean, yeah,
I mean, I think we're trying to improve it, we're not trying to
yeah,
disrespect
absolutely,
anything,
no.
so.
But it should, yeah, it's just replacing those with something, same thing, but something that's newer, I mean, just fresher, I don't know, it just helps the look of it, not necessarily about.
Yeah. Well, they're mostly stems now, anyway. The
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
third or half of it is all just,
Yeah.
just got old. I'll get a price on that, see if I can get it in the budget. Those are things I have written down, which is probably other things I could come up with. But those are, I think, the big things I wanted to share with you.
Yeah, I think that's what we got on last meeting.
Yes.
Unless you got anything else you want to share with us.
Operationally, you probably have all heard it by now, the person who works on parks and rec is transferred to the transfer station.
I do.
Yeah, so, and that's recent, I mean, that's within the last couple of days. So, once the internal posting is done, if anybody's interested in it, obviously, internal folks get an interview first. But if there isn't, we're gonna try to get that advertised as soon as we can, get that position filled. So,
Okay.
yeah. So,
Well,
others in the group will be handling whatever that position did, the interim. But that's just kind of an update on that, so you know.
All right.
Which is not the same, like.
Thanksgiving, 24th.
Alright, we're at 5. I know.
Mhm.
Okay, so next meeting.
All right, what we got 5:27.
Good job, Dave.
Oh, I know, right?
What time is it? Yeah, like make a motion or not. I make a motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?